Morning, councillors, CEO, directors, the traditional custodians of the land on which we are privileged to meet. The Yui people represent a human link dating back over 2,000 generations as part of one of the oldest living cultures on the planet. We pay our respects to the Indigenous elders, past and present, and to those emerging, and recognise their continuing contribution to our community and our country. So, councillors, we know that no members of the public are able to be with us because of the COVID restrictions, but we welcome our online viewers through our Facebook Live platform and also through our YouTube. And I never get that out in one sentence usually. So, welcome. I declare open this meeting of the Mackay Regional Council. And to lead us in our opening prayer today, Pastor Tagaloa. Pastor Tagaloa, would you... And welcome. I think this is your first time to council, so good to have you here.
Good morning, Mayor Williamson and the multitude of councillors present this morning, CEOs, directors and staff. It's a privilege to be in your presence and an honour to uphold you all in prayer before commencing this council meeting of this great region of Mackay. Let us pray. Eternal and dependable Creator of the universe, we acknowledge you as the giver of every good and perfect gift. You are our solid rock. You arm us with strength. Thank you for the seasons and climates, for sowing and reaping, for colour and fragrance. Thank you for the time of harvest when our labours and dreams are rewarded. Today, I would like to humbly uphold before you and ask for your blessings upon Mayor Williamson, the throng of councillors, CEOs, directors and staff amalgamated here this morning, and also the ancillary staff operating behind the scenes of the Regional Council office. I pray that you would surround every leader in their own right and the seat and position that they have been called to with wise counsel, that they would be humble and kind, patient and loving through their actions and words. I pray that their faith in you would be unwavering, strong, resolute, and firm. I pray for their families, that you would give them great strength, protection, and grace as we diverge together into the new norms of life ahead. I ask that you would continue to pave the way for strong, faithful men and women to serve in this region with wisdom, discernment, and honor the local people that makes the community. I pray that you would open doors that no one can shut, and that you would close doors that no one could open when it comes to the leadership and the important decisions hereon in, according to your will. I pray that you illumine their lives to keep them on the right paths as they serve, lead, and build this great region of Mackay, adding to the array of diversity and unity in this great nation we reside in, a great nation we call home. May the creative power of your word produce in them a stronger faith and an indomitable hope. Keep them from slipping. Fill them with courage as you show them your unfailing love. Give them an attitude of openness to receive the fullness of your grace and truth. We pray in your precious name that is above every other name, and that is Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Good to have you. Thank you very much. Nobody absent on council business. No apologies. Are there any condolences, councillors? Just noting today, of course, that, and I thank the councillors who came out to Far Beach for the commemoration, the 60th anniversary commemoration of the tragic loss of life in that Flock of Friendship crash 60 years ago tonight. Any conflicts of interest? I think there's a couple of conflicts of interest. Councillor Bonaventura, I think we've noted yours.
11.3.3, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Hassan, the same? Okay. Any other conflicts of interest? Thank you very much. We'll deal with that when that arises. Confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the meeting of the 27th of May have been circulated. We've had no questions come back to us on those minutes. Could somebody move the adoption? Councillor Englert moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. There's no business arising out of that. There's no Merrill minutes today. Let's move on to the consideration of committee reports and recommendations. 11.1.1 is the Office of the Mayor and CEO report. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. Our lost time injury frequency rate remains steady for May and for the year with little change as compared to last year. However, you'll note the duration rate or the days lost for some of our LTAs is quite high, as we've spoken about before. The good news about one of those 3 employees is they are back on suitable duties, which is great to see them back at work. As you'll know, most council facilities are now reopened after the COVID-19 shutdown. Some of those facilities, such as libraries and pools, still have some sort of restrictions in place. However, are accessible to the public and is running quite well. It's all going well. This facility, the MECC, remains closed and I think might stay closed for a little while. And we've taken the opportunity at some of those assets that have been closed due to COVID to bring forward some maintenance and capital to make sure the impact on our community as we go forward is lessened. The financial result for this financial year, we're all on track until COVID came, Your Worship. And it's tough to still estimate even with a couple of weeks to go, but we now believe we can control the deficit to within that $800,000 to $1 million, seeing how we go. A lot depends on what happens in the next 3 weeks. The 2021 budget preparations are now basically complete. You must be all trembling with excitement that you get your 350-page budget pack today. I wait to see the excitement on your face when you get that. Very pleasing in the last week, Your Worship, to hear that the state has awarded this council $6.93 million for the COVID-19 Works for Queensland special funding, which is sort of a little bit higher than we expected, Your Worship. However, very, very appreciative of that, and we've put that into the budget and picked some operating and capital projects that we're very confident meet the criteria and we can complete in 12 months. The operational plan, I'm pleased to put that up today. For next year, you'll see that it highlights the key areas of focus, and we have mentioned, I think in a briefing with councillors, that we have left a little bit open if COVID-19 allows a little bit of flexibility given the uncertainness of that. And the recruitment for the new CEO has commenced and it's going in earnest, so we hope that that's out to the market by next week.
Thank you very much, CEO. Questions for the CEO? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just on page 23, Your Worship,
Yep.
I note the state government funded beach restoration project still awaiting acquittal by the QRA. If I could just get some information on whether we believe that'll be far away or we're getting close.
Oh, yes, CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bonaventura. It's only a small amount, just waiting for the finalisation. The Groin project was the last one, as you know, that we did. The Lambert's Beach and the Midge Point ones, there's very small amounts left outstanding. It's not the total. It'll be done in the very near future. And by the end of the financial year, we assume that all to be sorted out.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Further questions for the CEO? Somebody like, Councillor May.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on page, let me see, 17, in regards to the environment section there, and we speak about the trials that have been taking place with the crushed glass. I was just hoping, and I'm happy to take this on notice, to get an update on how that's going and how are we evaluating that.
CEO, can we answer that?
I know the director has spoken before, and it's and we got rid of a lot of stock. I think last meeting we talked about that as well, so the crushed glass is going out. I'm not sure if the director is able to answer how it's going in the evaluation process, or we need to take that on notice. I'll look at him.
Director.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. We'll take it on notice. I mean, the trial that we've done on Hogan's Pockets Road, we're continuing to monitor, Councillor, and that seems to be holding up really well. I think we indicated at the last meeting we have some external developers that are using it, so we probably need to have a look at a mechanism how we're actually assessing that going forward. So happy to issue something later on.
Thank you.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Further questions? No further questions. Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's been a very eventful month again, this particular month. I just really wanted to draw out some of the highlights of the report. and particularly around our people, and we're in the development of the people and culture strategy, and I see that that's hopefully going to be concluded in June next month, or this month, by the end of this month. And I think that that's a really important document that Council should be working on, is making sure that we're looking after our staff and providing them with a good work environment. The other part of that is really the implementation of the business training needs analysis, and I think that's an enormous amount of work to be undertaken by the officers in regards to that, to do that assessment of what the staff needs are in training, and I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of that as well. It wouldn't be a meeting if I didn't mention the asset management, and it's really good to see that we're progressing along that path, and we've got there that the Parks pilot project has commenced, and the stormwater and road data cleansing is underway, so that's looking at the roads, the drainage, the water, the wastewater and parks now, so that's fantastic as well. Our disaster preparedness, I know that the officers have been working extremely hard on updating our plans, implementing those changes to the plans, and I know that they'll be presented to the LDMG in the near future, so I just wanted to recognise the enormous amount of work that has gone into that. And also the animal management facility. We were very fortunate to get $1.27 million towards our new animal management facility, and looking forward to that being tendered and built in the near future. So I think overall it's been a positive month, where I know our officers and our directors and CEO are continually working through the changes that come about through the COVID-19 pandemic, and they, I must say, they have done a fantastic job in being able to react and to make those changes in a very prompt manner.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Let's move on. 11.2.1 is the Capital Works Monthly Review for May 2020, and we'll ask the Director to step up to the lectern.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report in front of you shows a reasonable record on safety. You can see no LTIs for the month of May. We do have, however, a bit of a spike in incidents, showing 2 from our field services, our internal staff, and 4 from contractors. We are doing a lot more work in that space with encouraging contractors to report on their incidents, and although it's not good to see incidents, it is something that we are looking to take learnings from and share with our own teams. So that's good to see, given a lot of our contracted work is obviously delivered outside of our own staff. Projects completed during the month, we've had quite a few there, a lot of smaller projects, but about 15 in total. Quite a few awarded as well, so 9 projects awarded totalling about 1.6 million. And some of our major projects are a highlight, I suppose, Harbour Road and Ronsell Drive, a major shared path linking the city to the harbour. It's roughly 3/4 funded by TMR and due to be finished by the end of June, weather permitting. So that's really good news, and it's a good project to go and have a look at if you haven't already. The Resource Centre of Excellence, which you had a look at just last week, will be handed over by the end of June, so all is looking good there for the last portions of work. And Queen's Park also, which you had a look at, is due to open, we're anticipating by 30th of June to the public. So there will be a few small elements of work going on around the park that wasn't in the original scope, but we will be doing those works through the month of July. The tourism kiosk down at the Blue Water Lagoon, that's moving ahead, and we're looking to get that opened in early July for tourism to move into that kiosk. And also Gorge Road works, which a lot of people have been talking about, obviously with the upgrade of the causeways and the works on the road itself. We're looking for our field crews to actually get ahead of time there in a couple of weeks. So looking forward to that work starting ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Director Carlos. Are there questions for the Director? You might stay there until you answer the questions. Can't get off that lightly. Okay. Councillor Mann.
So, Your Worship, on page 33, I want to know what foam bitumen stabilisation in Crichton's Road is.
Good question. There's one word there that throws you out, and that's foam. I don't know what that's about. Bitumen stabilisation is where the pavement is combined with a bitumen emulsion, and that's what stabilises it. It gives it some flexibility. You would have heard of cement stabilisation, which we do a lot with pavements. But bitumen stabilisation is something else that we use to keep it flexible and to keep it bound. So I'm not sure where the foam comes from, but that's the process happening in that particular project.
Soft fall for road verges. Further questions for the Director, Councillor May.
Just on page 31, Director, you've got the financial performance there. And I just note that some of the areas are of a very low percentage, in particular the org services and the community and client services. I'm just wondering whether, like there has been some delays in the delivery of those capital projects in relation to those departments, or that they are going to be in train for the June delivery time frame.
Yeah, I might take that on advisement and get back to Council if that's okay with the details of those, but most of those projects aren't typical capital projects. They're spend that sit within capital within those departments. So it's not so much the projects that we would normally deliver, but some of the capital spend associated with those departments. So we can get back to you with that.
Are you able to circulate that to Council?
Yes.
Director?
Yep.
Thank you. Further questions for the Director? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just on page 41, Your Worship, in relation to the North Mackay Rotary Lookout. Now, I understand it's come to a stop, so I've just got a couple of questions in relation to that. So are we any closer to knowing when Ergon will be able to carry out the works? And if I could also add to that, will we have to bear any associated costs from the contractor because of the delay? And the final one is, what effect will that have on the time frame for completion?
Yeah, they're good questions. And Director, are we able to answer?
Yep.
I've talked to Ergon myself and I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So I guess we're no closer there. But
So as we've mentioned before, Ergon have had some significant changes to their operating procedures with their teams. That has meant that the contract we have with Ergon to underground power and move a transformer can simply not be done until at least the stage 3 restrictions are lifted in Queensland. So for us, that simply means we can't put up the structure, we can't finish the project. We're in close contact with Ergon, we're having meetings with them all the time, and I can guarantee Ergon are doing their best to prioritise that work as soon as they can. But as I said, the project relies entirely on them moving that pole, undergrounding the power and moving the transformer for us to do that work. And there's quite a bit of work there, about a week for their teams to do that. In the meantime, what we are doing to mitigate that problem, because it will involve a significant delay with the project that was meant to be open by now, we're going to work with the contractor to get access from Pollock Street through to High Street, so that at least while we're waiting for that work to be done and the project to be finished, we do have access gained again. So in relation to the cost, we don't know what the cost to council will be for that delay, but there will, we anticipate, be some cost.
Councillor Bonaventura.
Just my fear here, of course, is that when Ergon do start work again, we won't be the only one that has been waiting for them to come, and there will be quite a few jobs. So I do worry about really how long that will be, but I trust staff are doing their best to keep that high in Ergon's mind. But yeah, we face a risk.
I think that relationship was pretty good, but do we have an answer to that then, Director? That
Yeah, look, it's this piece of work that they're doing specifically there is quite unique to their operations. They are actually finding ways to get a lot of their other line work done. This particular work has a pole-mounted transformer and some other works that are quite unique. So this one, they've just said they can't find a way to do it until that restriction is lifted. A lot of their other works have not held us up on any of our projects necessarily, or not significantly, and they are moving through their other work. So,
Thank you.
further questions for the Director? No further questions? Thank you, Director. Somebody move the adoption of the report. Councillor Mann moves. Councillor Jones seconds. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. Look, as the Director said, there has been a slight increase in incidents in the department, but from incidents come learnings, and I'm sure those learnings will be shared and applied all around the department. As he also said too, a total of 15 projects completed in May, and a huge amount, 230-something projects underway as well. So there's a lot of work going on in that directorate, and I thank the staff for their focus on that. There was an interesting item in the report where the survey office team are busily making sure MRC is ready for when Australian coordinates change. So we're moving 1.5 metres apparently. 1.5 metres to the northeast of where they are now. And the shift is due to the movement in the Australian continent that has occurred since the last coordinate change 20 years ago. So very exciting stuff. Really also excited about the progress of the Romsearl and Harbour Road shared footpath. I can see it getting lots and lots of use. It's going to allow people to move safely between locations, or a lot more safely. So I'll be really, really pleased to see that finished. And to the Director of the Department, well done for May. I know there's been a lot of amendments to budgets and all that sort of stuff, but I'm really looking forward to the final result for the end of the financial year, which I'm sure will be fantastic.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones, speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. Page 85, I was really pleased to see that Council is undertaking some consultation with Midpoint community about re-establishing their SES volunteer rescue up there. The previous group and the ELOs were certainly very instrumental in previous cyclones. And
is this the right report, Councillor Jones?
Capital.
This is the capital expense report.
Page 85.
I think that's community.
Yeah, you're on the community one, I think, Councillor Jones.
My apologies, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll wait.
You can extend that next time.
Okay.
In the next report. Councillor Bonaventura, speaking for.
And hopefully on the right topic, Your Worship. Just a couple of dot points. I've got to say it was a pleasure to be able to have a sneak peek of the works underway at the Resource Centre of Excellence and the Queen's Park upgrade. And I thank the Director for his bit of an explanation on Queen's Park as to what will be finished by the 30th of June, because I did, in that walk around, go, I can't see us getting all this done by the 30th of June. So I trust that the works after 30th of June are not part of our funding material, so that will be great. Just full marks on the completion of the traffic lights at the installation at Milton and George Street intersection. This upgrade is working well, and it's really good. Smooth flow of traffic, very short wait times, and it was a real pleasure to be going through there the last few days. So thank you.
Yeah, well said. Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. 11.3.1 is the Community and Client Services Monthly Review for May, and we'll ask Director Hayes to step up to the lectern.
Thank you, Your Worship. With restrictions still in place for May, we've had to get a bit creative during the month in order to appropriately recognise some important events that have occurred. So similar to the great video that was produced to honour Anzac Day within April, during May the team have used alternative platforms such as online videos and social media campaigns to acknowledge, support and celebrate both National Reconciliation Week and National Volunteer Week. Similarly, due to restrictions, we've had to continue our virtual programs and online events across our community-facing teams. And in the month of May, we had enormous success with that, reaching over 30,000 people. It was wonderful to welcome back customers to our library service with the lifting of COVID-19 Stage 1 restrictions in mid-May, and we've now put in place plans to reopen our other facilities per the Queensland Plan as future stages come online. May also saw the completion of an independent COVID-19 community impact survey. We have received the early results and a final report on that will be due soon. During May, officers have continued to work with food businesses to improve their safety ratings, as well as playing a key role in providing education and support to businesses with the development and implementation of their COVID-safe plans. And lastly, I just wanted to mention the work that our community programs team have put in to support the assessment process for the latest rounds of our two most popular grant programs. That's Community Grants and Regional Arts Development Fund grants. Through just those two grant programs, the relevant assessment committees have recommended that more than $335,000 in funding for community organisations and artists be supported by Council, with both of those coming up soon on the agenda today. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Director. Are there questions for the Director? Looks like you... Oh, you do have one, Councillor Mann. Thank you.
Yes. So, electronic page 69, in MECC Technical Services Actions Completed, Clean and Reorganise Hospital. What does that mean?
Taking over the health system.
Yes, we're expanding. Right. Thanks, Councillor Mann. Director.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor. And it is an unusual term to see within our report, I acknowledge that. The hospital is a technical room that our technicians use to diagnose and repair all of the sensitive electronic equipment. And that's things like theatre lighting, AV and audio equipment. Okay.
Yeah, so you learn something every day.
Yeah, I was a bit worried about Dr Doyle.
Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question on page 88 of the report. You just mentioned the food licensing. It mentions that there were 29 inspections and that 35% of those businesses were non-compliant. I just wondered if that was a normal outcome, or if that figure just seemed a little high to me.
Good question. Director.
Yeah, I might need to come back to you on that. I'll be able to provide some stats on what a typical month is and circulate that around if that's okay.
Thank you.
That would be good if you sent it out, Director. That would be good. Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just on page 90, Your Worship, we've got an invasive plant fine, and I just want to know how bad it is, and do we think we can control it? And also the Director's thoughts on whether we need a media campaign to advise residents to be vigilant is the word.
About invasive plants?
Yes, the Sagittaria and one I can't pronounce. How's that?
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
So far, we've only found that particular weed in 2 locations, and we are confident that we can control it. So the team are still investigating though if there's been any impact to private properties. At this stage, it does only appear to be public land, or certainly that we're aware of. We're not necessarily planning to do any media campaigns at the moment, but we will reassess that if more of the weed is uncovered.
Councillor Bonaventura.
And spraying has sort of appears to be effective at this stage?
Director.
The plans that they're using to address it, yes, so far. As we said, we'll continue to assess and address if we need to. And it might be worth noting too that we'll be reviewing our biosecurity plan in 2021. So mid next year we'll start a review of that, and we'll include these new plant species into that as well to make sure that's covered.
Thank you. Will you keep us informed?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor May.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on page 79 in regards to our engagement processes there, and there's an extensive amount of engagement happening in the way of informing, and there's some consulting. I'm just wondering, in that process and the procedures, how is it determined when councillors are involved in the consultation?
Director.
On that one, Councillor Mayor, I would need to investigate and come back to you. I'm sure that we would have a process which details exactly when that trigger would be pulled for a consultation. I just couldn't tell you right now off the top of my head what that is.
Okay, thank you.
So if you could circulate that to everybody, Director, that'd be good. Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Ballard.
Just one very simple one that jumps to mind. I have something later on I wish to speak about regarding biosecurity. Wonder if the Director could comment on how's our relationship with Biosecurity Queensland? Do we work in well with them, or are we basically running our own race in that regard?
Yeah, and that's a fair question. So, Director, can you give us an answer on that one?
I will need to take some advice from officers on that one and circulate an answer.
Thank you.
Okay, so I mean this is obviously very important in our region. So yeah, your advice to the council would be much appreciated on that one, Director. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Take 2. I want to agree wholeheartedly with the Director around our online applications going from strength to strength. Our libraries and young people's services like their baby bounce, toddler time, story time, etc. have engaged with 1,919 members of our community for the past month. Also, Mackay Regional Council's art collection database upgrade is well underway. My Backyard and Beyond has had over 900 engagements, and the BMA Kids Space has had over 600 engagements. The COVID-19 survey was undertaken by the IRIS Research on behalf of Council. IRIS have been undertaking these surveys for Council dating back to 2009. This survey will help Council to identify the greatest areas of need for our community as we start to think about recovery planning as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the early results show that around 20% of people surveyed had concerns over job losses, with 28% of those surveyed concerned about the ongoing financial impact that the pandemic may have on their families. Some of those surveyed were also able to comment on some positive outcomes, such as connecting with online friends and family. And we'll have the final survey results report within the next week. So, as I said previously, on page 85, Your Worship, I was pleased to see about Council undertaking the consultation with the Mitch Point residents about re-establishing their SES volunteer rescue in that area. And as I said, the previous SES group and ELOs were instrumental in previous cyclones, and it is much needed in a community that has over the years been cut off from the rest of the region because of natural disasters. So I think that it's great that we're re-engaging. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bella.
There's a number of things that I wish to remark upon. First being, as some may have noticed, I'm a bit of an aficionado of Epicurean delights. The entertainment centre with their Bun Wednesday, you know, during the climate we've got at the moment, and to exceed sales, triple sales with that in these times is outstanding. And I think sometimes we congratulate staff, but the MECC kitchen for the last 4 years has been absolutely outstanding, and they set a standard that's in some ways creating a rod for their own back, because when you do get a meal that's average, it stands out because everything else is so far above average. I find their consistency of performance outstanding, and I just think that that it's something we should appreciate. The other thing was the where are we? The fat bird that we spoke about. It's just, the reason I mention it is, you know, oftentimes there's people, I've said a few times, that criticise council staff. But you look at the things that our staff have to do, basically behind closed doors, like this was a public thing because it was so outstanding. But as a rule, they're dealing with the errors and the lack of care of a lot of people, flushing things that shouldn't be flushed. And I'd say to people that want to criticise council, you know, would they be willing to do the jobs that our staff are doing? Because I think it's outstanding. The next thing that is a bit of an indicator of performance generally, if you look at the amount of consultation that is going on, these tables on 3 pages, you know, for different projects and things like that, it's not just the amount of consultation. It gives us a real idea of the number of activities that council is engaged in, not necessarily at any one time, but going off the boil, doing it, coming, you know, onto the boil, that sort of thing. It's just outstanding when you look through it. So, you know, it's not just a congratulations to this department, but it's a congratulations to everyone in general. I think it's a real indicator of how well we're doing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bella. Well said, thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Mann, speaking for.
Well, just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. Workplace health and safety, we've seen a reduction in incidents in this department. I think that's to be congratulated. I thank the Director and all the staff for their focus. We've talked a lot about how other areas of council are adapting what they do, but we haven't mentioned much about Artspace, who have been working very busily behind the scenes, installing new exhibitions, and also working to promote, entertain and educate the community on different social media platforms. So I think that is really well worth mentioning. And I've noticed, it appears to me anyway, to be extra information in the reports that we receive from all the directorates, but particularly from this directorate, and I am very appreciative of that, and I think it gives us a very, very good insight into what's happening into each department.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Councillor Bonaventura, speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. Firstly, follow on from Councillor Bella in relation to the community engagement side. I think the team delivered, in the report it says 25 articles last month, and they currently have 28 on the go at the moment. I think community engagement do an exceptional job in their role, and this will become more important, especially when we lose the Daily Mercury. They will become a source of information for locals on everything we do as council. And this may be a tool that council will have to rely on more and more as a way of keeping our residents informed. So I congratulate them, and I think they are going to end up with a lot more work. But anyway, we'll handle that. Also on the communication side, it's pleasing to see the live stream numbers watching council meetings are remaining high. And it'd be good to see this continue even after we come off the boil with COVID-19. But the most important one, Your Worship, today is I would like to mention the Chicken Divas. The Chicken Divas were part of the national simultaneous story time that library staff promoted through Instagram and Facebook, with a reach of 5,700 for the event. And my grandsons, Xavier and Emmaus, and they might even be watching now, wanted me to pass on my thanks to staff for bringing this event to their lounge room. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonaventura. And I can assure you we're not going to go off the boil after COVID. We'll still be as boiling as possible. So, are there further speakers to this motion? Councillor Townsend, speaking for.
I'd just like to congratulate Council, who have been very innovative in meeting the needs of our community programs since the onset of COVID-19. Council really has thought outside the box to meet our community needs in a virtual capacity, which I'm happy to say has seen the community embrace and utilise the world of technology and the way Council has worked to deliver the services they have enjoyed pre-COVID. An example of this is the utilisation of the library facilities, including Click and Collect. I got that right, Click and Collect, where our users can pre-order their books and pick up at their convenience. There's also the online programs for children, which has been introduced and has resulted in a total of reach of 30,331 people out there in the community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. Further speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. 11.3.2 is the Regional Arts Development Fund, the RADF, application round number 3 for May. So this is fairly well self-explanatory. Are there any questions? It's an excellent outcome. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Bonaventura? No? Sorry, Councillor Mann. Right, oh, you're the chair. Right, okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor May. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, again, a very tough round, being the last round for the year as well. Total amount available for round 2 was $59,088, and we received 21 applications to a total value of $189,514. Some of the projects we were able to support were for roof catchments for installing artworks on stormwater drains, and that's in an attempt to promote environmental responsibility. So I think that's I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that actually. Kathleen Campbell to record and design the debut album for Mackay band Folks Like Us. So really happy to support that genre, because we do have musical genre come to us, but not usually recording albums anyway, so that was a really good, different one. And QCOM Theatre for their youth drama group, who plan to combine with the Youth Cry Treble Trouble to present a production that will involve as many community groups as possible. I also wish to acknowledge retiring committee members Jane McCauley and Jan Ward for their invaluable contribution over the last 4 years. They've participated freely and given their advice freely, and it's been a pleasure to work with them, and we appreciate their commitment to the support of RADF and what it seeks to achieve in our region.
Thanks, Councillor Mann. Speaker against. Any other speakers?
Yes.
Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to really highlight, and the Director mentioned it in her report, the enormous amount of work that goes on behind the scenes in these applications. I mean, it's easy to bring the report to Council and it takes 5 minutes to move and second it and pass it, but the officers have done an enormous amount of work, as such as the committee members as well. There's a lot of hours that go into assessing these applications. We have a great array of artistic people in our community that want to take advantage of the Regional Arts Development Fund. And being a committee member, and I must congratulate Councillor Mann on chairing that committee, when you've got, a number of committee people, we've got a very big task to be able to whittle it down to the money that we actually had to allocate. And we had to do it online on a Teams meeting. It's not always an easy thing to do, so congratulations to Councillor Mann for that. And I just think the whole spirit of the committee was absolutely fantastic, that we were able to come to the conclusion that we have and fund the projects that we have. I just really wanted to acknowledge the committee members, the chair, and that process of the staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? Thank you very much. It's carried. Let's move on. So 11.3.3 is the community grant application round for round 2, 2019-2020. And now we have a couple of conflicts declared for this one. So what we're going to do, we'll ask Councillor Bonaventura and Councillor Hassan to step out. We'll consider those items that Councillor Hassan and Councillor Bonaventura have a conflict with. Ask the councillors to come back and we'll do the rest. Right, so there's two there that we need to resolve right now. So we'll break these up and resolve those two that the councillors have a conflict with. Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that both of these projects, the committee felt that were very worthy, and they were granted the money through the committee, and I just ask councillors to support that.
Right, thank you very much. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? It's carried unanimously. Can I ask the councillors to come back in, please? So the balance of the funding that's been sought through the community grants program, I apologise, is now on the screen. It's the second part of our motion today, and totalling $274,317. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Bonaventura moves, seconded by Councillor Seymour. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, this report contains details of applications received and the committee's recommendations for the funding. The Community Grants Committee assessed the applications on the 28th of May, and this was the second round of grants for 19-20 financial year. We received 33 applications requesting a total of $520,460. We only had $276,000 available, so it was always going to mean some groups were definitely going to miss out. I would like to thank Councillor Jones, Councillor Townsend and Councillor Seymour, who individually assessed applications, their dedication and their in-depth analysis of all the applications. They also backed this up with comprehensive notes. This gave us the ability to discuss all points of view on every application and has allowed us to be confident that all groups were considered on their merit. And this is very important when you consider the effort each community group went to prepare their application for us. The need to support as many groups, not-for-profit groups as possible, was high on the committee's agenda. And when you consider the position of some of these groups would be facing during the COVID position that they were all in. So, after about 2.5 hours of discussions, we found a way to either fully or partially support 25 not-for-profit groups. And if I could just give a couple of quick examples, our Mackay Local Fish Stocking Association received full funding to purchase a trailer and an 800-litre water tank, which will allow them to bring barramundi fingerlings from hatcheries further afield with a considerable cost saving. The trailer can then also be used to transport local hatchery grown fish for release to our waterways and for educational demonstrations at schools. And also helping things like the Bakers Creek AFL Club to replace a 30-year-old mower at a time when they need a hand. This will really mean a lot to clubs like that. And it then allows their own fundraising to be used for improvements within their own sport. In closing, just thank you to staff for their behind-the-scenes prep of all the applications, and again to all committee members for their diligence in the applications.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Townsend.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. This is my first term in council, and I have to say that I was extremely pleased to be a part of the Community Grants Committee and learn what council seeks to achieve for the community with our grant offerings. I've been involved in many community organisations and not-for-profit groups over many years. However, this has given me a greater insight and appreciation for the process and distribution of the grants. Given that every group is a worthy recipient, the process behind the assessments is robust, quite in-depth, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being a part of this committee, and I look forward to future grant rounds. And thank you to the committee members that we worked alongside and the staff. It was a very enjoyable experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jones, speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm also pleased to be back on this committee. While it's very challenging to try and decide who gets what, it certainly is a great feeling knowing that we've played our part in helping several not-for-profit organisations in our community. As Councillor Bonaventura has already mentioned, the request for over $500,000 of assistance, but we only had a bit over $250,000 to distribute. 33 applications were on the agenda, and at the end of all of our deliberations, there were only 8 applications that we weren't able to fund. With a combination of full of part-time funding, the 25 applications, we were able to assist the greater majority, which is a wonderful outcome for our community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Any other speakers? Well, congratulations to the committee and to the staff who assisted putting this together. This is a great cross-section of our community. It's great to see this amount of money going out to assist community organisations. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. 11.4.1 now. The Under Development Services Activate My Place and application review and recommendations attached. This is pretty well straightforward as an agenda item. Are there any questions associated with this? No questions? You've got a question, Councillor Bonaventura.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. Just on page 40, I note that one of the parcels listed is the old Pioneer Shire building and the surrounding land. Am I the wrong one again?
Yes. Well, you're jumping ahead, I think.
Yeah, fair way ahead.
This is the Activate My Place.
A couple short.
I know. Must be something in the water this morning. Are we right?
I'm happy to move it.
Okay, Councillor May moves. Councillor Jones seconds. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Again, this is a really good program that the council is undertaken here. This grants and application process is around activating places throughout our regional council area. We've got 2 successful applicants today, being the Finchatten Progress Association, with stage 2 of their wall, the painting of the wall up there at the Finchatten, and we're going to allocate $3,490 towards that. And the other project that has been given the tick today is the Mackay Hospital Foundation, and that's an Indigenous meeting place and healing garden to be established there, and we're contributing $5,000 towards that. There was one applicant that wasn't successful, and I would encourage the staff to work with that applicant to possibly reapply in a future round that we have of Activate My Place. So I think this is a great grant application process that does enable any part of our regional council area to come together to be able to put forward a project or a program to put some life back into the region. So look forward to these 2 projects being delivered.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. These 2 worthy projects to the value of basically very close to $8,500 going back into our communities, providing projects that will certainly show some points of interest and strong sense of place and a greater connection between the community and the Finchatten Township. Also, the Indigenous meeting place that Councillor May has also mentioned, the healing garden to encompass a culturally appropriate space to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in their health journeys, and delivery of language and cultural education for healthcare staff at the Mackay Base Hospital were, but the other obviously were the applicants. So thank you, Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.4.2, vegetation vandalism, which is an extremely significant case again at Halliday Bay. Straightforward. It's a policy application. Are there any questions? Somebody like to move the adoption of the report? Councillor May moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Look, it's really unfortunate that again at this meeting we have another case of vegetation vandalism. I can't stress enough that the importance of preserving all of the environment that has been that we need to protect going forward. The cutting down of trees to create a view or to create a path is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We have a policy that determines how we're going to deal with those people or what we're going to do with that environment to reinstate it. And I think that there is no winners here because the general community lose the benefit of our natural environment, and it's really unfortunate that in a lot of these cases we're not able to get the perpetrator. So I just encourage the community, if you see something like this happening, to report it quickly to the council so that we can act upon it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, vegetation vandalism will not be tolerated in our community. We have these rules to protect our foreshore vegetation as part of the protection of our coastal management and environmental management policies. So I give my full support behind the process outlined in the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Councillor Anglett.
Thank you, Worship. As I said last time, the people doing this in our community either aren't aware of our policy or are just plain out foolish. We are going to find these trees, the damage done. We are then going to replace each damaged tree with 3 additional trees. If you are doing this, you are going to lose. You will lose. It's foolish to think otherwise.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anglett. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thanks. Let's move on now. So the next one is the facilitating development in the Mackay region, our policy, and this is for reconfiguration of a lot on Anna Grove Road. CEO, would you like to speak to this?
Oh, thank you, Worship. Just quickly, it's the first one we've had for a while, and I will say this one's been dated back. And for all the councillors, just to remind you, we're up to version 5. We'll actually be starting to do a review this year by November, which we've committed to. Because this application was put in the 3-month period, we're being consistent. It's applied under version 4. Once you apply under that, the maximum allowable is 20%, and that's what we're recommending because it met the policy of version 4. Yeah, so I just want to, this is the first one we've had for a little while.
Thanks, CEO. Questions? Any questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Englert moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Worship. As the CEO said, it's 22 residential allotments. It's great to see applicants come forward again, given the current climate, and perhaps our policy would be a greater step towards getting the economy moving again than the federal initiative so far. So I think we're on a better track than them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Englert. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. 11.4.4, an EOI now for the Mackay waterfront development opportunity. CEO.
Thank you, Worship. I'm very, very pleased to be able to bring this forward to Council. I think priority development area has been a project of Council for several years, and I'm sure from the outside looking in, people think we aren't doing too much. But as you know, a lot of work went into the administrative side in the last Council to get it declared. A lot of master planning's been done. And what we're aiming to do here is to put out an expression of interest to the private sector, or to anybody really, but like most prominently the private sector, to see if there's any interest in 6 parcels of land. Just to be clear, it's an EOI because it's non-binding. It's a quick process just to check the market. Things like car parks in there, I'm sure people will be worried that we're going to give up car parks. That's not what we're saying here. We're just seeking ideas, information back from outside to see whether there's any interest that we can have further discussions, or it doesn't suit, and then the Council can have a look at all that. So very excited to bring this forward and hopefully see what comes out of it.
Thank you very much. CEO, questions? Councillor Bonnature.
I'm on the right section now.
You've got the right page, Councillor Bonnature.
Just on page 140, I know one of the parcels listed is the old Pioneer Shire building and the surrounding land. And while I understand we own that site, I'm not clear as to what part of why it would be part of this expression of interest list. It's such a small block, and
yeah,
so just a bit of
clarification.
clarification.
The building site is not. The building site, I'll let the CEO explain, but the building site is not.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Yeah, I can, it was in the media today as well, front page of the paper. It's definitely not the building. It's not the heritage building. It's the vacant land beside it. And the only reason we've put that in is that from further discussions that have been previously, there may be some developments around that site that particular land may be used for access and so on. So again, non-binding, nobody might come back, but we thought that by excluding the landowner, it's definitely not the building. Then we just see whether there's any interest that comes back, and then we can assess whether that's something that we might want to look at. I can assure you it's not the building.
Thank you.
Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor May moves. Seconded by Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is part of the process that the previous council has embarked upon in developing the PDA. We've worked our way through the community consultation, the development scheme itself, the master planning process. We have an advisory committee with some experts on that have been helping council formulate all of this to today, where we're going to the market for an expression of interest. I don't know about any other councillor, but I'm very excited that we're at this stage now. The priority development area is integral to the development of the Mackay region going forward. And it'll be interesting to see what interest that there is within not just our community, but across Australia, let's hope, that people are interested in putting forward some expressions of interest into these lots. And we have to really bear in mind that we are very, very fortunate. We have got one of the beautifulest blue rivers in Australia, and a lot of these lots can capitalise on that. So I'm looking forward to what comes back.
Thank you. I think it's the only blue river.
I wasn't going to say that.
Well, there's supposed to be another one, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful is the word.
Are there a speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura, were you speaking?
Look, I will just say a couple of words. Your Worship, to me, it's like Councillor May said, it's about gaining interest from the community or from the outside area at large, but it's about also giving the PDA committee a bit of understanding of whether we're on the right direction. We will get some information back from prospective people that are interested on what they would like to see and what they would like to do. And we may or may not be able to accommodate that, but it gives us a guide as to whether we are pointed in the right direction. So for that reason alone, I'm very pleased to be able to support this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Councillors, there's been many landmark decisions made by Council over the last 4 years in terms of the PDA. As the Deputy Mayor has outlined, just the administrative process in delivering us to this point right now has been enormous. And I thank all the councillors who've been part of that. I thank this council for the deliberations we've had around getting us to this point today. This is a huge landmark decision of council today, which actually puts our skin in the game. And for the officers of council, particularly for our officers associated with the PDA and the development, congratulations for getting us this far. This has been an outstanding journey. We are now on the journey which seeks to get the involvement of the development community in our PDA vision. So with those words, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Let's move on to the engineering, commercial infrastructure, org services and the adoption of council policies. There's 3 policies under those particular directorates of council that are coming up to us today, councillors. I think with the shade for playgrounds, the administrative action and the arts and cultural development policy, they've been circulated. We haven't had any questions come back to us from councillors from the circulation. Fairly well straightforward. Are there questions at the table? No questions? Would somebody like to move that we adopt these 3 policies of council? Councillor Mann moves, Seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Mann. Straightforward. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. The Ops Plan for 2020 through 2021 is up for adoption today. CEO.
Just quickly, Your Worship, as you know, we've spent some time with the councillors going through this, a lot of work to get to this. As you also know, this is the Ops Plan, but behind it is an action list, detailed action list, there's business plans. So hopefully it's a comprehensive summary of what the priority is for next year. Obviously with COVID-19 there may have to be some flexibility, but again I think it highlights the key areas and focus of the council going forward.
Thank you very much. Questions for the CEO on the Ops Plan? No questions? Somebody like to move the Ops Plan adoption? Councillor Englert moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Worship. What's interesting, so as the CEO said, it maps out what the council plans to do over the next 12 months, and what's interesting in that list, particularly around our shovel-ready projects, being the community, Northern Beaches Community Hub, the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Park, the Morini Community Precinct, and also an interesting one in there, the establishment of the working groups focused on engaging our young people between the ages of 10 and 21 within the region. So that's what we plan to do in the next 12 months, amongst many, many other things.
That's right. Thanks, Councillor Englert. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.6.3, the Queensland Audit Office 2020 Interim Report. So this has been circulated, councillors. Like, I have to say that this is a great report to read. When you hear the Queensland Audit Office say there is nothing of note that has been found in their audit, that's music to the ears. And when you read there's no internal control issues, no financial reporting issues or other matters raised by the Queensland Audit Office of any note to report. So congratulations, CEO, to you and the staff. Once again, an excellent outcome to get that report from the Queensland Audit Office. Are there questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor May.
I think you've said it all.
Righto, thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. 11.6.4 is the further extension of an agreement for lease on the VMX with Sunday Incorporated. Do we have any questions on this? We've had briefings on this. Are there questions? There's no questions. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Bonaventura moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think providing VMX with Sunday with an extension to their agreement for the lease period for the 12 months is the best outcome for Mackay Regional Council and the community at this time. A couple of quick notes at the bottom of it, and this will give VMX a further 12 months from the 31st of July to meet the Council's planning and the DNRM and other government departments' planning requirements, and be subject to the conditions precedent being satisfied. The sunset date, Council will grant a 10-year lease to VMX. Unfortunately, and we've got to be realistic, failure to obtain the required approvals in this further extension period will result in the agreement lease terminating and not proceeding, and no further extensions will be granted. So I think we've got to be mindful of that.
We've been very generous in our dealing with this crew, and we certainly hope that it goes ahead.
We do.
Absolutely. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Lease of land to the Mackay Croquet Club. Any questions? Somebody like to move? That we, Councillor Bella moves. Seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Bella.
I think there's very little to say on this.
You could be eloquent, and you could get a life membership.
That's a challenge. In many cases, we had the opportunity of going down there a couple of years ago. In many cases, there are sports around that are very, very valuable to a certain section of our community. They're not high-profile sports. They don't get massive amounts of spectators, but they do provide a social outlet that is often discounted by people. You know, we've got a lot of these little things around the place. I often talk about the diner down in Serena, how it provides not only food but a social outlet for people, and when it goes, what replaces it? This is one of those things. I've got to say that our visit there was interesting. The people there are enthusiastic and are always looking for ways to make it more popular within the community. So I'm very happy we're renewing this lease.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bello. Well said. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just in relation to the club, I think the fact that they've been established in Mackay since 1908, I think is worthy of a mention. And that at the current site since 1980, so they've been there 40 years, and to offer them another 10-year lease, I think is magic. So,
thank you very much. All right, are there other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you.
I look forward to them being in the North Queensland Games and Councillor Bonaventura building the dais and competing.
Thank you. Let's move on. There's no receipt of petitions. There's no tenders to consider today. Consideration of notified motion. We have one consideration was laid on the table to be considered again at this meeting, pending the delivery of some further reports, and they've been attached to the agenda item. Councillor Jones.
Your Worship, is there any chance that you would agree to splitting the motions for me, please?
Certainly. So we asked the Minutes Secretary if we've got that ready. Okay. So to split, happy to accept the splitting of the motion. That means we debate instead of one motion, two motions now that come before us as a notified motion that's been brought from the last meeting. So the first one is that the Mackay Regional Council amends policy 002 for reimbursement of expenses and provision of facilities for councillors by removing the below listed provisions by 6.1.2 and 6.6 and 6.12. Somebody like to move that? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, I would like all councillors to collectively come on board and see what we can do about the reimbursement policy. Even though in the past 4 years it's only been used a small amount, the potential to use the policy in the next 4 years could add up if councillors now and into the future use it. In light of the challenging year that we've had, I know that the community will be looking at us to make every saving possible now and into the future. There are several items in this policy that we all need to do our job, and I certainly don't deny that. My intention is to remove 3 items, is more of a future saving for ratepayers. If for some reason councils feel the need to be reimbursed for any of these items, they can certainly claim them on their tax, as we're all taxpayers. Item 6.1.2, discretionary professional development. We already get the opportunity to gain valuable information from mandatory professional development at conferences and training courses that council pay for. The discretionary professional development part of the policy is something that rarely gets used. Each councillor is allowed to spend $5,000 over the next 4 years if need be. It's been used twice in the last term of council by 2 councillors, and if this item was removed from the policy, the future potential savings would ensure that a cost of $50,000 would not be used over the next 4 years, and that would also move on into future terms of council, and this could then be removed from our budget, freeing it up another $50,000. Item 6.6 is for hospitality, and I believe this area of our policy has also not had great use over the past term of council. I think a small cost of $234 was reimbursed. The Mayor is allocated $6,000 and the council is $500 each year if they wish to make a claim. I don't believe councillors need to have an allowance available to them, as most functions that we attend are paid for. So the potential future savings for this item over 4 years would be $44,000, and it would free up $44,000 in our budget now and into the future. Item 6.12, uniforms. The Local Government Act states we are not employees of council. Yes, we do need our PPE to do our job. I've already said that I'll not be taking the uniform as we're not employees of council. Our role is like a board of directors. I don't see the board of directors of Woolworths Proprietary Limited wearing a green and white shirt that the staff wear. The council allowance in this policy states as per staff policy, which is $450 to each councillor per year. Again, we are not employees of council. The amount claimed by councillors last term was only $955.78, but removing this from the policy has the future potential to save $18,000 over a 4-year term. And again, if removed from our budget, will free up $18,000 in the budget. I ask all councillors to support the motion, and I reserve my right to the right of reply, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against. Councillor Mann, speaking against.
Thank you. Yep. I'm speaking against this motion today, in particular discretionary professional development, as in my opinion the removal of the budget allocation for councillors to undertake professional development is a mistake for this council and future councils. Professional development can be described as the process of improving and increasing capabilities through access to education and training opportunities, and professional development helps build and maintain morale. I want to keep building my capabilities and knowledge as I feel I've got a lot to learn, and have accessed the discretionary professional development provision to improve my skills relevant to my role as a councillor. I find it very disappointing that any other councillor would try to prevent me from being as effective as I can in discharging my duties. To my mind, the removal of this provision is a perceived cost saving. It is not an actual cost until it's used. Until then, it's a line item in a budget. If we're looking for cost savings, perhaps we could look to remove reimbursement for councillors for the use of their private vehicles, for official council business. Based on last year's annual report, that would be an actual cost saving of approximately $50,000. Maybe councillors could claim these expenses on their taxes, but maybe they can't, and it might not suit their individual circumstances. It's not something I would support, as it has the potential to impede the way councillors go about their official duties. As per the Local Government Act of 2009, the Mayor and councillors make local laws and determine policy and other matters at a strategic level. In my view, this motion has a very operational focus and that is in an area that I believe councillors should not be playing in. We have highly skilled and credentialed officers who take care of the day-to-day business of this council. Please let them do their jobs.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mann. Speaker 4, Councillor Bonventura.
Your Worship, at the meeting on the 29th of April, we unanimously agreed not to accept the recommended pay rise offered by the Local Government Remuneration Commission. And it's my understanding that as this fee is set for all councillors, we have only deferred the pay rise and we will automatically receive the increase next year, as well as any further increase that the Commission agrees to. So this year's saving to council from our wages freeze will amount to $27,258. If we look at what Councillor Jones has proposed, it will ensure that council is protected from any possible effect on the budget, and this will allow these funds to be allocated for other areas in council. Look, Councillor Jones has added up to a figure there well in excess of $100,000, and I see it highly unlikely that we will use that amount. But the savings to the budget could be in the order of $40,000, as opposed to our wages freeze that is only for 1 year. Your Worship, I see this motion as a hiatus on the costs, and it can be revisited at any stage when we come out of this COVID situation. Remember, the reason for our deferring our wages rise was because we needed to try and do what we could for the community. This is in the same vein. And I see this motion as the same light as our wages freeze. It shows ratepayers that we are prepared to make those little sacrifices by putting a halt on these expenses. Your Worship, I certainly support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bonventura. Speaker against, Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. What we're being asked here today is to actually change the policy of council. So the policy sets out the framework and the rules under which we operate, and in this particular case get reimbursed for expenses or paid for provision of facilities. If the items are not covered in this policy, it is my understanding that we cannot lawfully make a claim on that expense or facility. This policy has served us well over the past 4 years, and I hope we'll continue to do that. I want to make 3 points in regards to the motion. The first one is around the information of councils. In an open and transparent decision-making process, it is very important if councillors have information that have been provided by the officers at the request of councillors and has relevance to the notified motion being presented by a councillor, and councillors have been asked to consider, in my view, it is imperative that all of that information is made available to the councillor and also the public, in keeping with the open and transparent decision-making that is set out in the Local Government Act And I thank that the officers for providing that information that I requested at the last meeting. You can say that the comparison table from the council's take is very conservative. Our council is a very conservative view on reimbursing expenses and the allocation of facilities. If I say, for example, what is happening at the Rockhampton Regional Council policy, is around $10,000 for the Deputy Mayor, no limit for the Mayor, $7,000 for a Chair and $5,000 for a Councillor for professional development per year, not per term but per year. And our policy sets out a much more conservative view on that. I want to talk about the value and importance of professional development. I think it is imperative that we have the opportunity to develop our skills and expertise, particularly in such an organisation as being, like the councillors have said, being a board of directors of a large organisation. We've got a $330 million budget. So we need councillors to have the necessary skills and attributes to be able to make informed decisions around all the very important matters that come before us. If we don't invest in our people as an organisation, then we will never be a high-performing organisation. And I believe as an organisation, it is imperative that we should invest in all of our people at all levels of this organisation. We are also looking at professional development, hospitality and uniforms. And you truly want to look at cost cutting, I believe that the whole policy should be reviewed, not just some areas of it. It seems to me that I urge my fellow councillors that if you want to have a review of a policy, we're looking at cost cutting, we need to be looking at the whole policy, not just nitpicking little bits and pieces out of it to amend that. So I urge my fellow councillors to really consider what is being asked here today, because we're asking for a change in policy, a policy that's there to actually protect and to help develop councillors into their role. And we're going to see that taken away from us today. So I would urge all councillors not to support this motion.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker 4. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Green, speaking against? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Jones's notified motion has given me cause to ponder upon the role of a uniform, and I would like to share my thoughts and why I do not support the motion. A uniform helps to identify who I am and the organisation I belong to, enabling the public and delegates at public engagements and conferences to approach me more confidently. A uniform instills a sense of belonging and a shared feeling of commonality among those who wear it. A uniform brings everyone to the same platform, encouraging a feeling of equality among those wearing the uniform. Uniforms can depict solidarity and bring a sense of pride for the organisation and the people it represents. This morning, at the 60th anniversary of the Fokker Friendship crash, wearing this uniform with pride, I represented the community, my community, and the families of the 29 people who tragically lost their lives 60 years ago. In my opinion, the perceived minuscule savings to Council's $350 million budget in abolishing a uniform fund for councillors does not outweigh the numerous psychological and salient benefits such as those I've just outlined for those who choose to wear one. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Are there other speakers? Any other speakers? Councillor Englert, you're speaking against?
Against, Your Worship, thank you. And to Councillor Bonaventura's point, I don't speak for the CEO, but the reason I voted for not taking the pay rise, because I don't expect that there's any leverage for him to expect the same from staff this time round. And also I wonder if he is eliminating all professional development in the organisation, or if it's his view to actually maintain the growth of this organisation. And to Councillor Jones's point about tax, the ratepayers are taxpayers, rates is a tax. There's no difference. The same people are paying for the same things. The only difference is when we do it here, it's open, transparent and on the record, and when it's through the government tax, we can charge whatever we want and nobody knows what we're doing. I choose to do it here. Your Worship, I thank Councillor May for laying this on the table so the community can see, as part of the motion, the true comparison costs around councils. If she hadn't laid it on the table, I certainly was my intention to do so. It seems through the information provided that we are possibly the cheapest councillors in the state, both theoretically and practically. It's my belief that one generally gets elected to any level of government because they have a big heart, a big brain or a big mouth. It also doesn't hurt if you have a local celebrity status, you're an ex or current sports star or just filthy rich. But it's a great democratic system in which an everyday person can represent their community as an elected councillor. And thankfully, when I look around the room today, Your Worship, I see representatives from all walks of life. But Your Worship, just because we've got ourselves elected, it doesn't make us awesome. It makes us authorised to make decisions on behalf of our communities. But it doesn't mean we're qualified to understand what the people with the PhD, the multiple degrees, and the decades of experience are trying to explain to us. We don't need to out-qualify them, but we need to understand enough of what they're talking about to make informed decisions about their work. I've been involved with this council for more than 12 years now, and there have been some outstanding representatives on this council, but on occasions I have wished that a few of them had taken the opportunity to better themselves in the interests of their communities. I've seen it before, Your Worship. Councillors who seem to struggle or seem not to put in the effort. So in my opinion, Your Worship, sitting on the board of a community business with $6 billion in assets, not at your best, makes us all look foolish. I need some professional development, Your Worship, because I'm confused. On one hand, we're using the professional development to argue, to share around the Deputy Mayor's position, but no other professional development is necessary. And I can't see how this is getting up. In my mind, Your Worship, I can't see any of our new councillors voting for this. They don't seem foolish or arrogant to me. In my mind, they couldn't possibly think they are already awesome enough to do this job and will never need to do anything that betters their contribution to our communities. There is a councillor here today that used the professional development available to be a better chairperson on community and professional boards representing Mackay Regional Council and communities. And we all know an underqualified and unfocused chair can run a committee or board into the ground, and it's not a councillor's role to do that. Another councillor here today, at the beginning of last term, along with myself, Your Worship, studied higher-level financial and budgetary interpretation through the LGAQ as part of local government diploma. Now, it didn't go on professional development because it was limited training, but if we chose to go any further, it definitely would be on our professional development. And as a side note, Your Worship, it's my opinion that every councillor, it should be mandatory for every councillor to do that training. What hypocrites we would be to say we can have that training, but none of these new 5 councillors can have it. Another councillor here today understands the difference, that different councillors have different imposts on the way that they do the community's work. We set lower numbers on vehicle claims last term, but concede for some it's fair to allow more because they live further away. Why would that councillor not concede that their intelligence may far exceed that of mine? In the interest of fairness, Your Worship, I and others may need to more education than other councillors. Now, I may be clutching at straws on that one, but the idea has merit. And our last councillor has already given their support through a different alternative motion to professional development, so perhaps no one will support it. So how do we get this far? The policy as it stands makes those councillors who want to be better at their work. If there are councillors here who have no interest in being better, just stand to the side and stay out of the way of the councillors who are trying to be better. So, Your Worship, is this the truth or not? For those who put up their hands in support of this motion, if what I have said is false, you may well call me a liar, but if you put up your hand in support of this motion and what I said is true, I may well call you insincere, which is a politer way of saying hypocrite. It's my opinion this motion is the wrong motion in the wrong place at the wrong time, poorly thought through, poorly implemented. The motion is not awesome. I do not support it.
Thank you. Other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking for. Thank you.
I was going to sit and make a judgment on this. I am speaking for it. I'm merely saying that my decision does not hold me out to be labelled a hypocrite by another councillor. I resent it strongly, and I feel that that should be reprimanded. Thank you.
Thank you. I take it, Councillor Englert, that your remark was not directed at any councillor.
I premised the sentence with, it's my opinion. I used the word sincere and suggested under the English language that it would be an alternative to another word.
All right, well, you are very well aware of the councillor's code of conduct.
Yep.
And you're skating on thin ice.
Fair enough.
Are there other speakers? You'll write a reply, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You've got 2 minutes.
This is our policy to reimburse ourselves on top of our annual income for expenses incurred, and we can only make those changes. Unlike our budget, that is a very complex document, I remember 4 weeks ago at council briefings where we discussed our budget, and I recall the CEO asking the question to his staff, how can we do better? In researching the other councils, Cairns, Rocky and Townsville as a comparison, none of them have a discretionary professional development section. Regarding hospitality with Cairns, they don't even reference hospitality in their policy. And regarding uniforms for Townsville and Cairns, again, they don't reference uniforms in their policy. I know in the scheme of things, with the millions of dollars that we spend in our budget, this may seem small to council, but to the ratepayers of Mackay who manage household budgets, it's a lot of money, and we are elected to represent the community on all levels, and looking after finances is just one of them. So I ask that this notified motion be considered seriously by my fellow councillors. Let's be proactive in looking at our expenses and make a difference now and into the future. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the motion, Your Worship. I have presented an opportunity to this council which provides a total future savings of approximately $112,000 that could be removed from our budget now and into the future and will no longer be spent on councillors, and that will be able to go back into our budget for other items for community infrastructure and projects.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'll put the motion now. This is the first part of a two-part motion now. The motion is on the screen. We're dealing with 6.1.2, 6.6 and 6.12. Those in favour? Those against? It's defeated.
Got it, thanks.
Got it? Okay, so it's defeated 8-3.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. The second point of this notified motion, Councillor Jones. Now that reads that the Mackay Regional Council requests that officers present an amended policy 002, reimbursement of expenses and provisions of facilities for councillors to align with the headings within the policy with the headings used for the reporting under the annual report for councillor expenses. And I think that's all been fairly well self-explained in the notified motion. Councillor Jones?
Thank you.
You wish to move?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bonaventura. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Like you said, it is fairly self-explanatory. The reason about putting this motion forward is to be open and transparent. At times, the reimbursement policy and the headings and our annual report really don't gel with each other, and I think for the community to understand what is spent in the reimbursement policy, the headings need to be looked at, and I thank the staff for also raising this with me so that I can try and sort this out. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for?
Yes, Your Worship. Your Worship, this is just a matter of improving our recording, especially for the purpose of improving the reporting in our annual report. Now, if you look at the provision of facilities in the annual report from 16-17, it shows councillors spent between 4,141 to 5,678. A reasonable close range. If you look at our provision of facilities in the 18-19 annual report, the last one, it shows councillors have a variance of between $4,671 and $12,577. And residents ask questions. Why the vast difference? And there'll be all sorts of explanations because no one's clear as to what gets put into that section. So in the interest of transparency, we need to make it clear what this covers. So, look, I've got a copy of my expenses. I know where they've gone, etc., etc. So, and I don't have a copy of the other individual councillors. So I don't know why there was such a variance between 4,600 and 12,577. But I think to change the report in the annual report so it matches exactly what we've spent the money on, I think will be a big plus. And I'll leave it to staff to decide how they do that, but we just need to have a better system that gives us clearer results.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? All right, I can't see any reason why this can't be supported, councillors. This is it's a straightforward request to rearrange our reporting process in the annual report, but we can't do it unless it's a change to the policy. And that's what's being requested here. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So, councillors, there's no public participation, obviously. Is there any late business? Councillor Bella.
I had the occasion to go and visit a certain area up towards Farley-Abana after a complaint or an appeal by a resident there regarding a dam being built on the other side of the road and the effect it would have on the water. It's not an area that council has anything to do with, but went up anyway, and I had occasion upon going there to then contact Tom Bowditch from Biosecurity Queensland. Tom's been working on the red witchweed problem up in that area. This is kind of why my question to the Director earlier about how we liaise. I've been very critical of Biosecurity Queensland and their performance with yellow crazy ants and red ants, fire ants down in Brisbane, Cairns and the Whitsundays. However, on the red witchweed program, our local guys have been making remarkable steps. There have actually been areas that have been removed from quarantine and are going back into production. The reporting has gone from an annual total of 3,677 in the 15-16 financial year to 11 in the last financial year. So I think it's an outstanding result, and we may get very close to seeing eradication of a pest that will have or can have massive impacts on our sugar industry and indeed on our grazing industry. So my congratulations goes to the Mackay Department of Biosecurity Queensland.
Thank you, Councillor Bella. Yeah, that's good to get the council up to date on that. That's very good. Are there other items of late business? You may or may not know, councillors, that the Premier paid a visit to Mackay yesterday and came and had a meeting with me, which was exceptionally good. It was a very last minute. I knew about it at 6 o'clock the night before. But, I mean, that's the way it generally operates. It was very, very good in that the Premier and her DG, who was with her, were looking for shovel-ready projects. And because you have been part of a deliberation led by the CEO around shovel-ready projects, we were able to present her and the DG with the shovel-ready list for Mackay, for projects that can be completed within the next 12 months and projects that can be completed within 12 to 24 months. We were the only council she's been to so far that had such a project list ready and articulated. So that was a good outcome. So we'll see what happens in terms of the way that the state is looking to fund, or at least promise funding, for COVID recovery in terms of shovel-ready projects. This is over and above the extra Works for Queensland money that we've just seen. So it was a pretty good meeting. Now for the late business, councillors, we have some confidential reports to consider, and I think that we should probably move into confidential mode to consider those reports. Would somebody like to move that we close the meeting to the public? Councillor Green moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. So, councillors, we're back in a public forum now. We have 3 items that were considered in confidence. 17.1 is land acquisition for the Mackay Region mountain bike strategy. And once again, this is a landmark motion for the Mackay Regional Council. Somebody like to move? Councillor May moves, Councillor Inglet seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 17.2, the draft minutes of the Mackay Regional Council Traffic Advisory Committee. And this will be now moved into the public forum of council in the future. Would somebody like to move the minutes be adopted? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. 17.3, the Audit Committee minutes of the 21st of May 2020. Somebody like to move? Councillor Green moves, Councillor Hassan seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, CEO, and thank you to our directors and staff. Declare the meeting closed.